Now that we've laid the groundwork, let's start bringing things over using FM Robot. We're going to bring over custom functions, value lists, fields, and scripts. And we're going to begin by doing all of our fields. So let's go ahead and launch FM Robot. But before we do, make sure that you've got your source files open. So this is going to be the database that we are going to emulate over here on the new merged version of the database. And we've already created our DDR, so that's really the important part. What I want to do then is select our informative people file. Then I'm going to come down here, I'm going to launch FM Robot. And there are tabs here that you can use for doing different activities. And generally the way that these are laid out is what we would like to use. But we're going to start off first of all with our fields. And so what we're going to do is we're going to browse to the DDR that we created earlier. And we'll just do these one at a time in order. So let's just go ahead and start with the ACT DDR here. And then what you need to do is tell it where your target file is. Now the target file is going to be our new informative people database. So I'll come down here and I will find that. The available tables in our source file, because this was not a multi-table version of FileMaker, will only have one table name, and that's going to be that one there. You don't need to create the new table because remember we already did that when we created all of our master tables in here. So what we want to do is we want to add this to the selected table in our target file. So in order for this to work, let's just jump back over here to this for a moment, and let's go ahead and switch over to our table choice, and then let's pick that file that we want it to do. We're going to have it do the ACT file, so we choose that one. And let me scale this down a little bit and make it a little bit easier when we're going back and forth. And bring this over like this. So we select that. Then we go to our FM Robot, and like I said, we're going to add to the selected table in the target file. So I've selected this table here under the Tables tab for the Manage Database window. And then what I want to do is I want to bring over all of the files. So I've checked this box, and then I just click this button down here to move all the fields over. And then I can just tell it to create these 31 fields. Now as soon as you click this button, it's going to let you know that that you need to make sure that you've selected the target table. And then once I have, and I click OK, I'm going to take my hand off the mouse because it's actually going to take over the screen and it's going to go through an automated process. You don't want to move the mouse or change displays or do anything on the computer while this is working. You just want to leave it alone and let it do its thing. And it'll go through and it'll just simply recreate every one of the fields in the database until they've all been created. If it runs into an area where there's a calculation field that is using a relationship that had not yet been established or calling on a field that has not yet been brought over from one of the other tables, it won't know what to do with that. And if that's the case, it will comment it out. Now I think you'll notice here in a moment it'll get to one of those, and when it does I'll draw your attention to it. So here's an example where it commented out the calculation area so that later on you could go back and simply remove those comments after all of the relationships and fields have actually been brought into place. So I'm just going to let this continue now, and when it's done we'll move on. Okay, it just finished up, and when it's done it'll let you know that it's done, and then you can click OK and go on and do the next one. So now we'll go ahead and move on to our next one in the list. So we simply come up here to select our source, and we're selecting our DDRs, so we'll choose the next one, which is the archive one. And then everything else remains the same except for we pull over that set of fields. And then again we just click here and it'll create that next set of fields. And we would do this for every one of the DDRs in this list until we've gotten through all of them. Now you're going to be skipping the summary, of course, but you're just going to do each DDR XML file that was created for each of the individual files or tables, skipping the summary. And once you've done all those, we can move on to the next step.